What really decides who succeeds in life? Is it natural talent that gives some an early edge, the steady discipline of hard work that never stops, or the hidden strength built through struggles, setbacks, and failures that quietly shape ordinary people into resilient and capable leaders? The bankruptcy papers arrived on my daughter's 8th birthday. I sat in my car outside her school, reading the legal documents that meant we'd lost everything. The house, the business, the comfortable life I'd worked 15 years to build. In 3 hours, I was supposed to smile and celebrate, as Maya blew out candles on a cake I could barely afford. My business partner had embezzled $200,000, leaving our construction company drowning in debt and facing lawsuits from clients whose projects remained unfinished. The lawyer said bankruptcy was our only option. How do you explain failure to an 8-year-old? I texted my wife, Elena. You don't explain failure, she texted back. You show her how to fight through it. That evening, as Maya opened the few small gifts we could manage, I watched my daughter's face light up with pure joy. She didn't know her world was collapsing. She didn't know her parents were terrified about tomorrow. But she did notice when I seemed distracted during her birthday song. "Daddy, are you okay?" she asked, crawling into my lap after her friends had gone home. I looked into her curious brown eyes and made a decision that would change both our lives. "Maya, Daddy's company is having some big problems. We might have to move to a smaller house and live differently for a while. But you know what? Sometimes when things get really hard, that's when people discover how strong they really are. Are we going to be strong, Daddy?" "We're going to be the strongest family in the world," I promised her. 6 months later, we were living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I was working 3 jobs trying to pay off the debts that bankruptcy couldn't discharge. My days started at 4 a.m. with a landscaping crew, continued with afternoon handyman work, and ended with evening shifts at a loading dock. Elena took a job at a call center while Maya was at school. Everything hurt. My body from manual labor I hadn't done in years, my pride from explaining to former clients why their projects had failed, my heart from watching Elena count grocery coupons and Maya pretend she didn't want the toys her friends had. But something unexpected began happening during those brutal 18-hour workdays. At the landscaping job, I met Carlos, a crew leader who'd immigrated from Mexico with nothing and built a small business through pure determination. "Every day you don't quit," he told me, "you get a little stronger, not just in your muscles, but in your mind." The handyman work reconnected me with skills I'd forgotten during my years as a business owner. I started noticing problems other contractors missed, developing solutions that saved clients money, building relationships based on quality rather than profit margins. At the loading dock, I worked alongside guys who'd faced every kind of setback imaginable. Job losses, divorces, health crises, family tragedies, but they showed up every night, lifted every box, earned every dollar with dignity and determination. "You think this is rock bottom," said Jerome, a dock worker who'd lost his management job in the 2008 recession. "But rock bottom is just a foundation you can build something better on." Maya adapted to our new reality with the resilience that only children possess. She helped Elena organize coupons, turned apartment living into an adventure, and started a strength journal where she wrote about our family's daily victories. "Daddy worked all day and still had energy to help me with homework," she wrote one evening. "That's super strength." Reading her journal entries, I realized my daughter was learning something that prosperity could never have taught her. That strength isn't about never falling down. It's about always getting back up. After a year of grinding through multiple jobs, I'd saved enough to start thinking about my next move. The construction business was tainted by the bankruptcy, but I'd learned skills during my struggle year that no business school could have provided. I understood what it meant to work for every dollar. I knew how to communicate with workers who faced real financial pressure. I'd developed systems for managing time and energy when both were in short supply. Most importantly, I'd learned the difference between running a business and building one sustainably. Instead of trying to rebuild my old company, I started something smaller and smarter. Rodriguez Home Solutions, just me, a truck, and a commitment to never overextend or overpromise again. I focused on smaller projects, built relationships one job at a time, and reinvested every dollar back into the business. No fancy office, no employees I couldn't afford, no dreams of quick expansion. The first year was challenging but manageable. I worked long hours but came home every night to help Maya with homework and listen to Elena talk about her day. We were still in the apartment, still careful with every expense, but we were stable. The breakthrough came during my second year, when Mrs. Patterson hired me to renovate her kitchen after 3 other contractors had left the job unfinished. "I'll be honest with you, Mr. Rodriguez," she said. "Your bid isn't the lowest, and you don't have the flashiest website. But you're the only contractor who asked about my budget constraints and offered solutions instead of just telling me what you wanted to sell me. The job took 6 weeks, and I treated it like I was building for my own family. I showed up early, cleaned up thoroughly, communicated about every decision, and delivered exactly what I'd promised within the budget we'd agreed on. Mrs. Patterson was so impressed that she recommended me to her friends. Within 3 months, I had more work than I could handle from referrals alone. "What makes you different from other contractors?" one client asked. "I've been on the other side," I explained. "I know what it feels like when contractors overpromise and underdeliver. I know what it's like to worry about every dollar. I don't just build projects, I protect people's investments." That philosophy became the foundation of everything I built next. By year 3, I needed to hire help. Instead of looking for the most experienced workers, I sought out people who reminded me of myself during the struggle year. Hardworking, hungry, and eager to prove themselves. Maria was a single mother who'd been cleaning houses but wanted to learn construction skills. I taught her basic carpentry, and she brought an attention to detail that amazed clients. David had been laid off from a factory job and was driving for rideshare companies. He learned electrical work faster than anyone I'd ever seen, partly because he understood what the opportunity meant. "These people work harder than workers I could afford when business was easy," I told Elena one evening. "They appreciate what they have because they know what it's like to lose everything." Elena had started her own journey during this time. Her call center job had introduced her to customer service systems, and she'd begun developing training programs for other companies. Her experience managing our family crisis had taught her how to stay calm under pressure and solve problems creatively. "I never would have discovered I was good at this if our old life hadn't fallen apart," she said. Maya, now 11, had become the most resourceful kid in her class. She'd learned to budget her allowance, find creative solutions to problems, and help others who were struggling. Her teacher said she had natural leadership abilities, but I knew better. Those abilities had been forged through watching her parents fight through adversity. 5 years after the bankruptcy, Rodriguez Home Solutions had grown into a team of 15 employees and a reputation as the most reliable contractor in our area. We'd moved into a modest but comfortable house, and Maya was thriving in middle school. But the real test of what I'd learned came when the economy crashed again in 2020. Many construction companies folded as clients canceled projects and cash flow disappeared. I watched competitors who'd seemed more successful than me close their doors within months. But I'd learned to build for sustainability, not just growth. We had reserves, reasonable debt levels, and systems that could adapt quickly to changing conditions. More importantly, my team had learned the same lessons about resilience that I'd absorbed during my darkest year. When work slowed down, they found ways to add value. When clients got nervous about spending, we developed solutions that fit tighter budgets. "How are you guys still busy when everyone else is struggling?" asked Tom, a contractor who'd always seemed more naturally talented than me. "Because we learned how to thrive when things got hard," I explained. "Our whole business model is built on the assumption that challenges are normal, not exceptions. While other companies waited for conditions to improve, we adapted our services, found new markets, and emerged from the crisis stronger than we'd entered it." The recognition that meant the most came when the local business association named me Entrepreneur of the Year. Not for being the biggest or most naturally gifted business owner, but for demonstrating resilience and building a company that created stable jobs even during difficult times. At the awards ceremony, I was asked to speak about the secret to business success. 10 years ago, I thought success was about avoiding failure, I said, looking out at an audience of local business leaders. I thought the goal was to build something so strong that it could never be threatened. I paused, thinking about Maya in the audience, now 16 and preparing for college. But failure taught me something that success never could. It taught me that sustainable success isn't about being unbreakable. It's about being anti-fragile. It's about building something that gets stronger under pressure instead of weaker. I told them about the bankruptcy, about the 3 jobs, about learning to see struggle as training rather than punishment. The hardest year of my life became the most educational year of my life. Not because suffering is good, but because responding to genuine challenges developed capabilities that easy times never could. After the ceremony, a young entrepreneur approached me. She was facing her first major business crisis and considering giving up. "Mr. Rodriguez, I started my company with such big dreams, but everything's falling apart. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this." I thought about myself 10 years earlier, sitting in my car reading bankruptcy papers and wondering if I was strong enough to rebuild. "Let me ask you something," I said. "Are you learning things now that you never had to learn when everything was going well?" She thought for a moment. Yes, I'm learning about cash flow management, employee motivation during tough times, customer retention when budgets are tight. I'm learning how to make decisions when I'm scared. Those aren't just survival skills, I told her. Those are the exact capabilities that separate businesses that last from businesses that don't. Your crisis isn't ending your story. It's teaching you how to write a better one. 2 years later, she sent me a photo of her expanded team and a note. You were right. The hard year made me a real entrepreneur instead of just someone with a good idea. Today, Maya is in college studying business with a focus on sustainable enterprise. She says she wants to build companies that create opportunities for people who've faced setbacks. Dad, you taught me that struggle isn't the opposite of success, she told me before leaving for her freshman year. It's the ingredient that makes success meaningful and sustainable. Elena runs her own consulting firm helping companies develop resilient management practices. Her client base includes Fortune 500 companies who want to learn from someone who's actually navigated real crisis. And I continue running Rodriguez Home Solutions, now with 30 employees and projects across 3 counties. But the principles remain the same. Treat every project like it matters, build relationships based on trust, and never forget that setbacks are setups for comebacks. When young business owners ask me what really decides who succeeds in life, I share what 10 years of rebuilding taught me. Natural talent gives you an early edge and opens initial doors. Hard work builds competence and sustains progress over time. But the hidden strength built through struggles, setbacks, and failures, that's what transforms ordinary people into leaders who can guide others through any challenge. The bankruptcy that felt like the end of everything was actually the beginning of everything that mattered. It stripped away everything I thought I needed and revealed everything I actually needed. Resilience, resourcefulness, and the unshakable knowledge that no setback is permanent unless you let it be. Maya still keeps her strength journal, and sometimes she reads me entries from that first difficult year. Daddy lost his business but didn't lose his hope, she'd written at age 8. That's the strongest thing anyone can do. She was right. The strongest thing isn't avoiding failure. It's deciding that failure doesn't get to decide who you become. The depth of this truth became clear 3 years later when I received a call that would test everything I'd learned about turning adversity into advantage. Mr. Rodriguez, this is Janet Morrison from Morrison Industries. We're facing a crisis, and your name came highly recommended by several people who said you understand how to rebuild from disaster. Morrison Industries was a family-owned manufacturing company that had been thriving for 40 years until a series of setbacks, a major client bankruptcy, supply chain disruptions, and a devastating factory fire, had brought them to the edge of closure. We've always been successful, Janet explained during our first meeting. My father built this company through good times and steady growth, but we never learned how to handle real crisis. We don't know how to fight when we're losing. I looked around their conference room, seeing the same shell-shocked expressions I'd worn during my own bankruptcy. The Morrison family had natural business instincts and had worked incredibly hard for decades, but they'd never developed the specific capabilities that only come from navigating genuine catastrophe. Tell me about your current challenges, I said, pulling out a notebook. For the next 2 hours, Janet and her brother Michael outlined their situation. They had 180 employees who depended on them, loyal customers who needed their products, and a family legacy they couldn't bear to lose. But they were hemorrhaging money, facing lawsuits, and dealing with insurance companies that seemed determined to avoid paying fire damage claims. Every consultant we've talked to says we should file for bankruptcy and start over, Michael said. But that would mean abandoning our employees and our customers. There has to be another way. I thought about Carlos teaching me that every day you don't quit makes you stronger. About Jerome explaining that rock bottom is just a foundation for building something better. About Elena counting coupons while never losing faith that we'd recover. There might be another way, I said, but it's going to require doing things you've never had to do before. It's going to mean getting comfortable with being uncomfortable for a while. Over the next 6 months, I worked with the Morrison family to implement every survival strategy I'd learned during my own dark period. We restructured operations to focus on core profitabilities, renegotiated supplier relationships based on long-term partnerships rather than short-term costs, and most importantly, communicated honestly with employees about challenges while involving them in solutions. The breakthrough came when we realized that the factory fire, devastating as it was, had given us an opportunity to rebuild with modern efficiency systems that our competitors couldn't match. Instead of just replacing what burned down, I suggested, what if we designed a facility that turns this crisis into a competitive advantage? The new factory layout, designed around lessons learned from operational struggles, reduced production costs by 25% while improving working conditions for employees. The insurance settlement, initially viewed as inadequate, became sufficient when combined with strategic upgrades that increased capacity. But the most important change was cultural. The Morrison family had learned that sustainable success meant building resilience into every aspect of their operations, not just hoping that good times would continue indefinitely. "Alex, you didn't just save our company," Janet told me at the reopening ceremony. "You taught us how to think like survivors instead of just successful people. Now we're prepared for whatever comes next." The Morrison Industries turnaround attracted attention from other family businesses facing similar challenges. Soon I was consulting for companies across the region, all dealing with various forms of crisis, market disruptions, succession planning difficulties, economic downturns, technological changes. The pattern was always the same. Businesses that had succeeded through talent and hard work, but had never developed the deeper capabilities that only struggle could teach. Elena noticed the shift in my work during one of our evening conversations. "You've become more than a contractor," she observed. "You're becoming someone who teaches people how to transform their worst moments into their strongest foundations." She was right. My construction background had evolved into something broader, helping people rebuild not just structures, but entire approaches to resilience and sustainability. This realization led to the creation of Second Foundation, a consulting firm that Elena and I built together. She brought her expertise in crisis management and team development, while I contributed the operational and leadership lessons learned through rebuilding from bankruptcy. Our first major client was the school district where Maya had attended elementary school. They were facing budget cuts, declining enrollment, and low morale among teachers who felt overwhelmed by increasing challenges with decreasing resources. "We need someone who understands how to do more with less," Superintendent Davis explained. "Someone who knows how to maintain quality when everything seems to be falling apart." Elena and I spent 3 months working with principals, teachers, and support staff to develop systems that could thrive under pressure, rather than just surviving it. We helped them identify which programs provided the most educational value per dollar spent, restructure communication systems to reduce administrative burden on teachers, and most importantly, reframe their challenges as opportunities to innovate, rather than just obstacles to endure. "You've taught us something crucial," Principal Foster told us at the end of our engagement. "We were so focused on what we were losing that we couldn't see what we might be gaining. This crisis forced us to become more creative, more collaborative, and more efficient than we'd ever been during good times." The school district's success led to contracts with other educational systems, healthcare organizations, and municipal governments, all facing the same fundamental challenge of maintaining mission-critical services while adapting to rapidly changing conditions. Maya, now in her senior year of college, started interning with Second Foundation during her summer breaks. Her perspective as someone who'd grown up watching crisis transform into opportunity brought fresh insights to our work. "Dad, what I've learned from watching you and Mom is that resilience isn't just about surviving bad times," she said during one of our client strategy sessions. "It's about using bad times to develop capabilities that make good times even better." Her observation became central to our methodology. We weren't just helping organizations survive crises. We were helping them emerge from crises stronger and more capable than they'd been before adversity struck. The validation that meant the most came when the university invited me to guest lecture in their business school about anti-fragile leadership, leading in ways that get stronger under pressure rather than weaker. "How many of you hope to avoid failure in your careers?" I asked the lecture hall full of MBA students. Almost every hand went up. "That's a natural hope," I continued, "but it's also a limitation. If your goal is avoiding failure, you'll also avoid the experiences that develop your most valuable capabilities." I told them about the bankruptcy, about the 3 jobs, about learning that sustainable success comes from building anti-fragile systems rather than just strong ones. "Anti-fragile doesn't mean unbreakable," I explained. "It means getting better when stressed, not just surviving stress." A student raised her hand. "But Mr. Rodriguez, doesn't that mean you're grateful for the bankruptcy? That you wanted to lose everything?" "I'm not grateful that it happened," I replied, "but I'm grateful for what it taught me." The bankruptcy was terrible. Learning how to transform bankruptcy into capability was invaluable. After the lecture, Professor Williams, who'd arranged my visit, shared something that crystallized the broader impact of the journey Elena and I had taken. "Alex, what you've demonstrated isn't just personal resilience," she said. "You've shown how individual transformation can create ripple effects that strengthen entire communities. The businesses you've saved, the jobs you've preserved, the families whose livelihoods you've stabilized. Your bankruptcy didn't just teach you how to rebuild your own life. It qualified you to help rebuild other people's lives. That evening, Elena and I sat on our back porch, watching Maya help the neighbor kids with a science project. The house was comfortable but not extravagant. The business was successful but not flashy, and our family was stronger than it had ever been during our more prosperous days. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the bankruptcy had never occurred? Elena asked. Sometimes, I admitted. But then I think about all the people we've been able to help. All the lessons Maya learned about real strength, and all the capabilities we developed that we never would have discovered during easy times. I gestured toward Maya, who was patiently explaining a concept to a frustrated younger child. Look at her. She's not just smart or hardworking. She's wise about how to help people through difficult moments. That wisdom came from watching us navigate our own difficult moments. Elena nodded. She learned that struggle isn't something to fear or avoid. It's something to learn from and use to help others. That night, I updated my own version of Maya's childhood strength journal, recording the lessons that 10 years of rebuilding had taught me. Natural talent gives you advantages, but it doesn't teach you what to do when those advantages aren't enough. Hard work builds capabilities, but it doesn't prepare you for what to do when working harder isn't sufficient. The hidden strength built through struggles, setbacks, and failures. That's what develops the wisdom to navigate any challenge and the resilience to help others do the same. The bankruptcy that seemed like the end of everything was actually the beginning of everything meaningful we've built since. Not because losing everything was good, but because learning to rebuild from nothing taught us how to build something truly lasting.